You know, when you look at the story of someone like Jack Ma, it reveals this powerful, maybe even uncomfortable truth about what it really takes to succeed. It's not this grand tale of some born genius. Nope. It's about something we can all tap into, just plain persistence. So picture this. It's 2014. Jack Ma's company Alibaba goes public. And it's not just any IPO. It was the biggest in history at the time. They raised a mind-blowing $25 billion. That's billion with a B. I mean, an absolutely monumental moment that just catapulted him and Alibaba onto the world stage.
But that's what's so wild, right? It makes you wonder, how on earth does a guy who famously couldn't even get hired at KFC turn around and build one of the biggest companies in the world? The whole answer, the secret sauce, it's all about how he looked at failure. So if we want to get to the bottom of his success, we've got to start with his failures. And I'm not talking about a few bumps in the road. His early life was, well, it was basically a masterclass in getting rejected.
And this is really the key to the whole thing. Jack Ma wasn't born with a silver spoon. He wasn't some kind of prodigy. What set him apart, his superpower, was this insane ability to just take a punch, get knocked down, and just keep going. I mean, let's just look at the resume of failures here. Primary school exams, failed them. Middle school exams, failed those too. And then when he gets to the big one, the huge college entrance exam in China, he failed it. Not once, but twice. You're starting to see a pattern here, right? So he finally scrapes his way through college, and you'd think things would get easier. Nope, the struggle just continued. He goes out, hits the pavement, applies for 30 different jobs. And the result? Rejected by every single one. Okay, now we get to that famous story, the one you've probably heard. KFC opens its first store in his city, 24 people apply for a job, they go through the interviews, and at the end of the day, 23 of them get hired. Guess who the one was? Yep, Jack Ma. The single person out of 24 that they said no thanks to. Can you just imagine how that feels? To be the only one who wasn't good enough? But see, this is where he's different. His mindset just flipped the script. For him, getting rejected wasn't a dead end. It wasn't proof that he was a failure. He saw it as feedback, just data, information he could use to learn, tweak his approach, and get better. And you know what? That exact way of thinking is what got him ready for the moment that would literally change everything, the day he first saw the internet. All right, so let's jump forward to 1995. Jack Ma is on his very first trip to the US. A buddy of his shows him this brand new thing called the internet, and right away he is totally captivated. And what he discovered was so simple but so profound. His friend shows him how to search, so he types in beer, and boom! Pages of results from the US, from Germany, all over. Then, out of curiosity, he types in China. And what comes back? Nothing. Absolutely zero. That one empty search page was his big aha moment. It hit him right then and there. China, a country with over 1 billion people, had basically zero presence online. Now, where most of us would just see an empty page, Jack Ma saw something else entirely. He saw a gigantic opportunity. So, flash forward to 1999. He gets 18 of his friends together in his tiny little apartment, and get this. None of them were tech geniuses. They had almost no money, but what they did have was this one super powerful, crystal clear idea. Build something that helps small businesses in China sell their stuff to the rest of the world. And that simple idea, that was the beginning of Alibaba. So what was it that kept him going? What was the philosophy that pushed him through all those tough years when Alibaba wasn't making any money and had no clear path to success? Well, it's actually pretty simple. This was basically his mantra. If you don't give up, you still have a chance. Think about it. As long as you're playing, you can still win. The only way to guarantee you'll lose is to quit. It sounds so simple, right? But he actually lived by it. And this led him to this really interesting, kind of counterintuitive idea about success. He basically said that really smart people often fail faster because they quit sooner. Why? Because when things get tough, their big brains show them 10 other, easier things they could be doing. But the so-called average people, the ones who feel like they don't have other options, they're the ones who just stick with it longer. And a lot of the time, they're the ones who end up winning. All this experience gave him a really clear framework for life. He said, basically, in your 20s, just find a good boss and learn everything you can. Then in your 30s, that's the time to work for yourself, to take some risks. When you hit your 40s,
Double down on what you're truly great at. And in your 50s, it's time to give back, to mentor and invest in the younger generation.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? I think his story kind of pulls back the curtain on what success really looks like. And guess what? It's a lot less glamorous and a lot more uncomfortable than we like to think. The path to doing something amazing is not a highlight reel you see on social media. Jack Ma's life proves it. The reality is, it's filled with failing over and over again. It's constant embarrassment. It's years of just being patient. And honestly, it's a slow, boring day in, day out grind. And that brings us to the most important point of all. Jack Ma's superpower wasn't some off-the-charts IQ or a magical gift. He wasn't born special. His one true advantage was that he was willing to put up with more failure than pretty much anyone else. At the end of the day, it wasn't about being the smartest guy in the room. It was about being the last one standing. So his story really leaves us with a question for ourselves. Look, we all have things we want to do, right? We all have goals. But the real question isn't what you want to achieve. The real question is, what are you willing to persist through to get it? What failure, what embarrassment, what slow, boring grind are you willing to endure to get to where you really want to be?